What if Cain never killed Abel? Picture a sun-warmed field at dawn. Two brothers, two altars, one with fresh grain, golden and fragrant. One with the firstborn of a flock, smoke curling into the quiet sky. No shouting, no blood on the ground. Just a decision hanging in the air like held breath. Do we let jealousy drive us, or do we learn to talk before anger takes the wheel? Tonight, we're stepping into one of the earliest crossroads in human memory. We're not rewriting scripture. We're exploring a respectful what-if, an educational journey. Because if that first violent act never happened, if Cain stepped back and listened to the warning at his door, the ripples might change everything, from how cities grew, to how justice worked, to the way families handled hurt. First, the story as it's told. In Genesis, Cain is a farmer. Abel is a shepherd. Both bring offerings. For reasons the text keeps sparse and mysterious, Abel's offering is regarded. Cain's is not. The tension rises, and then comes that quiet, powerful line. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. It's the moment between heartbeats, the voice of warning, the chance to turn. But Cain invites Abel into the field, and there, he kills his brother. The ground drinks Abel's blood. The earth itself seems to mourn. God speaks, not only judgment but a boundary of mercy. Cain will wander, but he will be protected, marked so no one kills him. Cain moves east to the land of Nod. He builds a city. His lineage innovates tools and music. Yet violence keeps echoing. Lamech sings of 77-fold vengeance. The world grows corrupt and cruel. Eventually, we meet Noah, a flood, and a reset. That is the canonical arc. Offering, warning, murder, exile, city, cultural bloom, rising violence. The first family becomes the first cautionary tale. Now think with me. Hold that warning line, sin at the door. And imagine Cain doing the opposite of what you expect. He pauses. He breathes. He asks his brother to talk, not to walk. Maybe they sit on a stone wall near their altars. Maybe Abel, careful and kind, says, "Brother, we can try again. Bring the first fruits, not the leftovers. I'll help you." Or maybe the answer is more mysterious. Maybe it isn't technique at all, but posture. Maybe Cain learns a different posture. What changes if rage melts before it hardens? The first change is personal but enormous. No blood crying from the ground. The story of human life doesn't begin with a brother's grave. It begins with a difficult conversation that worked. That memory becomes our earliest family legend, the tale every child hears by firelight. Not, "This is where jealousy destroys us," but "This is where jealousy was named, faced, and passed through." The proverb of the first family shifts from warning to wisdom. Without the murder, there is no mark of Cain as a protection for a guilty man. Instead, the mark of mercy appears in a different place. Not a sign on Cain's body, but a practice in the family. They teach their children to bring anger into the open before it becomes a weapon. Imagine Eve watching her son's hug, Adam rubbing his eyes, relief breaking like rain after a long heat. That memory doesn't erase future conflicts, but it becomes a template, and templates spread. What about cities? In the canonical story, Cain builds the first one out in Nod, a wanderer laying foundations. Exile becomes architecture. But in this alternate path, Cain doesn't leave in disgrace. He and Abel could still drift east, but they wouldn't be fleeing. They'd be planning. A city born not of a restless curse, but of a shared project. Fields meeting pastures, granaries beside sheepfolds, coops near wells. The first city might still be called after a child, Enoch perhaps, but its founding story changes. It isn't, "Man hides from man." It is, "Two brothers learn to live side by side." That city story matters. Founding myths matter. The origin of a city is the seed of a culture. If the seed is vengeance, the fruit tastes like fear. If the seed is reconciliation, the fruit tastes like mutual care. Picture streets designed with meeting places at their heart, simple courtyards where disputes are brought before sunset. Picture elders who ask, not "Who struck first?" But when did you feel anger start? Walk us back to the door. Sin is still at the door. The difference is, the door is always crowded with listeners willing to help you master it before it masters you. Does violence still come? Of course. People are people. We miss the mark. But the first murder isn't the model. It's not the story we keep retelling. The first murder, if it comes, arrives later, and the world meets it with practices already in place. Not sevenfold vengeance, but sevenfold patience. Time to cool, time to hear, time to repair. Now let's talk offerings, because that's the spark that lit the fuse. In our what if, Cain doesn't storm off. He listens. He returns to the ground he loves, gathers the first and the best, and returns with an open heart. Abel, instead of standing apart, stands alongside him. Two altars, grain and lamb, become a single act of worship. And not because ritual merges, but because hearts do. That sight folds into faith's early memory, worship as a braided cord. Farmers and shepherds, shoulder to shoulder. This would shape theology gently but deeply. The old question, what does God want from me, gets a new nuance. The answer includes form and timing, yes, but also posture, confession, and companionship. You don't fix a rejected gift alone, you repair it with a brother. Early faith leans communal instead of isolated, and that changes how people imagine the sacred. Altars are not stages for rivalry, they're tables of peacemaking. Genealogies bend too. In the canon, Abel's line ends. Seth arrives later, and through Seth, the story carries forward. In our scenario, Abel lives, and the family tree gets wider earlier. You might still meet Seth. Families don't freeze because no one dies. But the role of replacement son dissolves. Instead of one line carrying a particular promise and another line carrying the weight of restlessness, you have two lines learning to share land, share tools, share songs. The descendants of Abel become famous for shepherdcraft and peacemaking. The descendants of Cain become renowned for irrigation and music and metallurgy. Still inventive, but less haunted. Marriages weave the two lines back and forth until the names blur, like streams joining in a valley. What happens to Lamech, the poet of vengeance? Maybe his song never gets written. Or maybe he still exists, but sings differently. Picture a brash man bragging about escalation, and elders around him chuckle and shake their heads. No one builds life around his lyrics. The lullaby of the world becomes a different tune. Would this soften the world enough to delay the flood? That's a heavy question. We're not playing judge here, and we're not changing the divine. We're tracing human choices. If the earliest communities normalize reconciliation, if the first city designs forums for peace, if worship teaches us to repair together, then yes, corruption might spread more slowly. The earth would still struggle under pride, greed, and harm, but the background music of the world would be less of a drumline for war, and more of a patient drumbeat for repair. And sometimes, that's the difference between a forest catching fire and a forest holding its breath through a summer of heat. Let's follow the ripple forward in time. Sibling stories are everywhere in the Bible. Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers, even Moses and Aaron, Miriam and their moments. If the earliest campfire story every child hears is Cain and Abel reconciling, then later brothers have a script ready to use. In our timeline, when Jacob steals a blessing, Esau remembers the first brothers and chooses to cool his rage sooner. Their reunion comes earlier, their embrace longer. With Joseph, maybe those brothers still feel envy, his coat still flashes in the sun. But someone says, remember the field, remember the talk. We don't throw him in a pit, we talk. If that happens, does Egypt still become a refuge? Maybe, but not through betrayal. The same destination, a softer road. Even law codes could grow from this soil. Early justice might be less retribution, more restoration. An instinct to repair the torn fabric rather than tally up wounds. When a wrong is done, the village gathers not to punish first, but to reintegrate, to name the harm, to restore belonging where it frayed. That doesn't mean there's no accountability. It means accountability isn't the end of the story. And art, don't forget art. Without the shadow of the first murder, early songs hold more lament for hurt feelings than for blood. They still know sorrow. They just learn to express it before it hardens. Instruments still emerge, harp and flute. But the hands that craft them don't craft spears in the same way or at the same speed. Music takes up more space in the day. Weaponry takes up a little less. Over centuries, that subtle ratio changes the skyline. More towers for bells, fewer for watchmen. More fields planted near city gates, fewer walls bristling with fear. Now, inside that city of brothers, imagine a simple symbol. 2 altars carved side by side into one stone, a knot between them. Children trace it with their fingers. That knot becomes the mark people look for when they hire a judge, plan a festival, or bless a marriage. Are these the kind of people who know how to tie a knot rather than cut one? Midway through this thought experiment, I want to ask you something. Which later story do you think would change the most if Cain and Abel had reconciled? The feud of Jacob and Esau, the jealousy around Joseph, or something else entirely? Share your take in the comments. And if you enjoy these respectful what-ifs that make ancient stories feel alive, consider subscribing so you can journey with us each week. Back to the ripples. Trade routes look different in a world where the first conflict was de-escalated, not escalated. Shepherds and farmers cooperate earlier, so wool and grain move together. Markets form at crossroads where conflict mediation is part of the day's rhythm. Imagine a market judge, gray-beard, patient eyes, whose stall sits between the grain jars and the wool bales. A reminder that commerce is conversation. The earliest contracts include a sentence about reconciliation, who to call, what to do, how to cool down, and the stories we use to guide children take on a different shine. Instead of warning children, "Don't be like Cain," parents say, "Learn from Cain." Not as a symbol of failure, but of growth. The hero isn't the flawless one. It's the angry one who didn't take the bait. That kind of hero is attainable. That kind of hero can be you at a family table, you in a meeting, you at a traffic light. The spiritual poetry of later ages would shift too. In our canon, there's a haunting line. Your brother's blood cries from the ground. In this alternate path, the ground still speaks, but with a different voice. It says, "In 1,000 fields, we were spared. The soil kept the blood of lambs and the first fruits of grain, not the blood of brothers." The land carries memory differently. Holidays emerge that celebrate the day of the talk, not just the day of the gift. Pilgrims bring both produce and stories to a central place, repeating the tale of how anger was faced before it flew. Think about the small inventions that would grow from this seed. Tools for gathering and threshing shared between clans, one week on Cain's side, the next on Abel's. Songs with alternating verses, sung antiphonally across a valley. Poor families looked after by a network rather than by a single benefactor. Even the first laws about travel safety, way stations, wells left open, might come sooner, because people learned early that safeguarding the journey is everybody's responsibility. All right, you might ask, what about the darker side? Doesn't somebody, somewhere, eventually decide that talking is weak? Yes, there are always people who use gentleness as an opening. But here's the shift. Communities trained from the start to reconcile are also quicker to set boundaries together. They know when a conversation has failed. They know how to stand firm without doubling harm. So when the first true violent leader rises, he meets a people skilled in closing ranks without poisoning their souls. They carry both instruments and plowshares, and they are slower to turn one into the other. Now take a step back and look at the ark. In our world, the early narrative loads the soil with rage and sorrow. In this what-if, the soil is still heavy with toil and dust, but the first seed planted is a seed of repair. The whole garden grows differently. The fruits taste sweeter a little longer. The weeds still come, but hands are already trained to pull them together. Where does this leave the big, later moments? The Exodus, the kings, the prophets, the birth of the early church. History is big and tangled. A kinder root doesn't guarantee a painless tree. Pharaohs still harden hearts. Giants still taunt valleys. Empires still loom. But the people facing them carry an early inheritance that stiffens their spine and softens their hands. They imagine new kinds of alliances. They build covenants not just with rules, but with rituals that rehearse repair. And in homes, this is where it might matter most. Family tables hold fewer unspoken landmines. Parents teach children to name envy out loud. Siblings learn that a slammed door is a signal, not a verdict. The sentence "sin is crouching at the door" becomes a family refrain, not a threat, but a guide. Kids grow up knowing that doors can be opened for conversation long before they become gates to a battlefield. You can almost hear the stories shifting. Instead of the first tragedy, we keep retelling the first victory over ourselves. Instead of "don't be like Cain," it becomes "be like Cain when he chose the hard talk." That might be the most radical change of all. We begin to believe that mastery over the crouching thing is not a myth for heroes. It's a daily practice for ordinary people. By the way, none of this erases sorrow. It doesn't pretend the world becomes easy. It simply imagines the world beginning with a different kind of courage, the courage to pause. For early humanity, that pause would be a hinge on which cities swing, laws turn, songs lift, and families breathe. The path of history still winds, the thorns still prick, but the first footfall is gentler, and the echo travels far. So, what if Cain never killed Abel? Maybe the greatest miracle wouldn't be a city without crime, or a world without war. Maybe it would be a memory, the very first memory, of choosing to speak before striking. A memory that grows like a sheltering tree. And here's the quiet gift hidden in this what if. We don't live in that alternate timeline. The first murder remains part of the story we inherited. But the warning we heard at the door, that lives here now. Every one of us meets it, every day. We still get to decide, in fields and kitchens and quiet rooms, whether we listen, whether we ask for help, whether we turn a quarrel into a conversation. In that sense, the alternate world isn't far away. It's just on the other side of a pause. Thank you for stepping into this gentle speculation with me. May it send you back to the old story with fresh wonder, and forward into your own day with a small, brave pause of your own.